Hi everybody and welcome to part 6 of the How I Made the Daryl doll tutorial. Disclaimer for this video, I had my camera die on me about 2-3 times because the video was so long. So this took me quite a while to make this one. I wanted to show everything for this one because this one is probably the most complicated. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you are going to see is my little schematic I made. You'll need 2 pieces of the limbs, 1 mount, 1 cocking stirrup, 1 base, 2 fins with holes, 2 circles with holes, 2 small rings, 1 wide ribbon, and 1 black string. I didn't. If you see here, I labeled what all the stuff is and what it's for. And then here is the side view, and yes, they are called bolts because it is a crossbow, not a bow and arrow. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's an arrow because it's a crossbow. It's like, but crossbows, they don't use arrows, they use bolts. And I know a lot of people get that mixed up, but if you also notice, bolts are also smaller than arrows are. But so, quick little fun fact. Not trying to sound like a butt, but I'm just putting it out there. I like to be informed when I do my schematics and stuff like that. So, but most of this stuff is going to be made out of polymer clay. You could use other stuff. You could use like Crayola Model Magic, or you could use air dry clay. But if you do polymer, make sure that when you bake it, you don't bake it the same time there's food in the oven because it can give off toxic fumes. If you would rather just ignore the whole toxic fume thing, then I recommend the La Premiere air dry clay. Okay, let's begin. Here I have my conditioned black polymer clay, and I have a rolling tool, a little round cutter, my tools, my cutting board, my little pan, and here I'm starting to roll out my polymer clay. And I will not lie, it is hard on the hands, especially if it's not soft. I cut about 5 inches, maybe more. You got to keep in mind that you're making this doll size, so you got to keep it proportionate. As you can see, I rolled it so that some of the sides were flat, but not completely. I wanted it to have some thickness because what I'm making here is the base. And I'm taking my tools and I'm rounding out the corners, that way the corners are smooth and not harsh. And here I am outlining the ridge. Basically, it would be like the butt of a gun, but basically what I'm doing is I'm outlining that part, and here I'm, starting to outline where the trigger and that would go. This was the tricky part because the clay around, I forget the name of it, but you would have your trigger, and then there's that little piece of metal that, it's kind of like a cover almost. That part is really thin, and it could break very easily after it bakes. So I was making sure that it was on there really, really well, and that it was a thick enough piece that it wouldn't just snap in half. And doing tiny stuff like that, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Even with the crossbow, there's still tiny parts to it, and it still takes quite a bit of work. But I believe in you guys, you can do it. As you see here, I did the trigger in that first, and then I was trying to do like the finger guard part of it, and trying to get it to stay and make it, I was trying to make it strong, but when, you gotta work with what you got. Do it the best that you can. Another material, now that I'm thinking about it, that I would also recommend is, it's called Epoxy Sculpt. It is rather expensive, but and it's very very stinky, but it at least with epoxy sculpt, after you mix it, you can let it sit for 15 minutes and then it's within a workable consistency, and it you don't have to bake it, and it dries hard as stone, and it's fabulous. And the best part is, to smooth it out, you can use water after it has set for 15 minutes after you mix it. Oh, it is fabulous, fabulous stuff. It is not cheap, however. It is not cheap. For, let's see, I bought, it's less than a pound. I think it's less than a pound, or it is a pound. It was like $40, but it is so worth it. And as you can see, I finished the base, and I'm setting it in my pan. That means it's ready to bake. What I'm doing now is I'm rolling out I believe I'm making the limbs. So I'm trying to roll out my clay to make it the appropriate length. Yes, I am totally making the limbs. And as you can see, I took my really long cutting tool and I made 2 pieces. And as you can see, I bent them because once the clay is baked, you can't bend it. So you have to bend it before you bake it. And here, you can see that I believe these are circle pieces. It's hard to tell from the angle, but I used my little cookie cutter and cut out the little round pieces, and my goodness, I'm trying to remember what they're called, but you know, the little round pieces with holes, they are called cams or wheels, and they are attached to the limb of the crossbow. You know, they're the thing that holds the cables and the string on the crossbow. And then what I did is after I cut them out, I took a little round tool and pushed holes into them. And that little rectangular thing that I just talked over, that I just made, that is the cocking stirrup, and that is what goes at the very front. You know, it's kind of like, I'm assuming it has to do with like aim or reloading. I'm not 100% sure, because you know, I just make the stuff, but I'm not an expert. And then I did the little fins with holes, which are called risers. And let's see, what am I doing here? I believe I'm poking more holes, possibly making another riser. I'm not 100% sure. You see how good I am at knowing what I'm doing here? It's because I can't see what I'm doing. Oh, I see. I'm making the mount. Okay. See, I am horrible. And as you can see here, all my pieces have been baked. And I'm using a hot glue gun. I would have done a different glue, but hot glue gun was the quickest. As you can see, I did the limbs, and then I put the 2 wheels onto the limb, and then I put the other limb on top. And I also put the cocking stirrup on before I put the limb on the very top, as you can see. So it's like in the middle. Same with the wheels. And then I put the base on, or the stock, whatever you would like to call it. And then you know, so far that's all I got. And then see, what I'm doing with these rings is I'm using them because the crossbow that Daryl uses has a strap on it to carry it with. So I put the little rings on it to put the you know, so I could put the string on it, so that way I could have my doll hold it. Like I said, I am not I am not the best when it comes to this stuff. And as you can see, I also glued on the mount. And I forgot to mention previously that when I was making the stock or the base of the crossbow, I dug a hole near the front, a little. I don't know if you can see it near the where the limbs are, and the is it's called the flight groove. It's where you put the arrows, when you're setting your crossbow. And as you can see, I put the risers on the little fin pieces, and that was about it. Now what I'm doing here is I'm making the quiver and the bolts. And I did not make any of this part out of clay. I did the quiver out of um, a box or of cardboard. I made a tiny little box and then covered it in this plasticky, papery. It's hard to. It's like what you find on covers of books sometimes, but it was really easy to work with, and I just basically glued it together. And then I painted toothpicks, and I glossed them all. And then I did the same thing when making the bolts. And then with the bolts, I just took a piece of cardstock and I colored a section of it green and cut some of the oh my goodness, I believe it's called like the tail or the fin of the bolt. And I did one side white, one side green, as you can see. And now here I am, as I'm taking the black string. I would recommend a pretty decent sized piece because you can oh my lord, I cannot think. It's better to have too much than not enough. That is what I'm saying, man. Oh man, it's been a long day, folks. Bear with me. I know I'm just rambling on, but that's just how I roll. Roll. And don't mind my awful hands. They're dry. Oh, sorry. Gotta laugh at yourself sometimes, am I right? As you can see, I'm still struggling with the stringy part. I would definitely recommend using a needle if you can get it through the holes of your wheels, because the string does need to go through there, and it's a lot easier if you use a needle. And here we go, and it's finished. And you see what I mean? I used a shoelace as my little quiver deal, my goodness, as my strap. You see, I pointing out all the stuff. See, there's the ridge I was talking about, right there where I'm pointing it with my thumb. That is where you put the arrows when you go to load it up and shoot it. Or I'm sorry, not the arrows, the bolts. Breaking my own rules here. Forgive me all, it's been a long day. But anyway, and after I finished gluing it, I glossed it to make it all prettyful. And that's it. That's the end of part 6. And the finale is coming up next. See you soon all. Bye.